Hello, my name is Professor Angelo Rentis. This video is intended to be used with Module 14, which looks at the effect of ultraviolet light on bacterial growth. In this video, I will explain the setup of the UV light apparatus, and I will also demonstrate how to properly swab bacteria onto the surface of TSA plates. Section 1. Setup of the UV light apparatus.
We know from experience that most microorganisms are adversely affected by exposure to UV light, ultraviolet radiation, ultraviolet light. We also know that the intensity of the exposure makes a difference. And you can vary the intensity of exposure by changing the distance between the UV light source and the microorganism. You can also change the intensity of exposure by modifying or varying the amount of time that the bacterium is exposed. Now I have a setup here that I'm going to be using to control or vary both the distance between the light source and the bacteria and the amount of time that the bacterium is going to be exposed to the UV light. Just very quickly here on this panning shot, I'm going to be working with 3 different distances. First of all, I'm going to hang the UV light in this position that I'm calling the low position. The light source is 40 centimeters above the plates. You can see the 3 plates down here. These plates are just placeholders that I've propped up so that you can see where the plates are going to go. When I actually put the plates underneath the light source, they will be lying flat so that they're getting uniform exposure to the UV light. So the 3 positions are low, which is 40 centimeters above the tabletop. The next distance is medium, which is 80 centimeters above the bench top. And then there's high, which is 120 centimeters above the bench top. Again, these distances are measured from the bench top to the light bulbs that are located inside the UV light fixture. Now the bacterium that we're going to be using is called Serratia marcescens. And I'll be showing you how I'm going to set the plates up in just a moment. Here's a little closer shot of the setup in the low position. I was going to move it up to a different distance and decided to leave it at its lowest position. This is the light fixture. The bulbs are located inside. You'll notice that I have yellow construction paper taped to the light fixture. This is to protect the eyes of me and the other students. There really isn't much risk of being exposed to the light bulbs at the low position, but as you raise the fixture to medium and high, if you didn't have the shield on there, it's quite likely that you could look at the fixture and accidentally stare at the bulb, and UV radiation can be very damaging to the retina. So we want to do whatever we can to eliminate the risk of exposure, accidental exposure to the UV radiation. So you're not going to ever really be able to see the bulbs here, but the bulbs are located up in this fixture, and this shield that I've constructed protects the user from the UV light and also makes sure that UV light is being directed directly down to the surface of the bench. Okay, so how did I set this up? Well, if you've read the lab module, you'll know the way we want to do this is we want to arrange our plates so that the bacterium we're using will be exposed to the UV light for 3 different amounts of time, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and 2.5 minutes. We also want to vary the distance between the bacterium and the UV light source. from the low position to medium position, eventually up to the high position. In other words, from 40 centimeters to 80 centimeters to 120 centimeters. Now, in order to do this, I label a set of 9 plates. These plates are labeled with the time and the distance. Let's take a little closer look at the plates. Hopefully you can see that I labeled the plates with both the intended time and exposure as well as the distance at which the plates will be located relative to the UV light source. I'm going to be doing these plates as groups of 3 plates at a time. I'm going to do 3 plates at the low position. 1 plate will be exposed for 30 seconds. Next plate will be exposed for 60 seconds. And the third plate will be exposed for 2.5 minutes. I will repeat that at each of the distances. So once I have finished with the 3 plates at the low setting, I will move the light source up to the medium setting. Again, I will have 3 plates, 30 seconds of exposure, 60 seconds of exposure, 2.5 minutes of exposure. And then again, I will move the UV light source for the last time up to the highest distance. And I will have 3 plates that will be exposed 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and 2.5 minutes. Hopefully you can see through this video the actual labeling. I have used L to symbolize low, M to symbolize the medium height, and H to designate the highest distance, the largest distance. So what I will do after I put the bacteria on these plates is I will come over to this location and I will take the first set of plates, the set that needs to be exposed for different amounts of time at the lower distance, the closest that the light source is to the bench. I'll make sure that the light is turned off. I will place the plates in their designated locations. Hopefully you can see these 3 pieces of tape. Those indicate the approximate center of the plate when I put the plates down. So looking at these spots from left to right, I'll put the 30-second plate on the left, the 60-second or 60 L plate in the middle, and the 2.5 minute 2.5 L plate on the far right. Now these are all labeled L because all 3 plates are going to be exposed to the UV light source at a distance of 40 centimeters, the low position. So once I have my plates in place, remember I've already put the bacteria on there. I haven't shown you how to do that yet, but I will. Let's pretend that I have put all the bacteria on there. So each plate has had the surface of the agar covered with a suspension of Serratia marcescens. Once I'm sure all 3 plates have been positioned properly, I then turn on the light source and I start the timer. After 30 seconds after I've turned on the light source, I will reach in and quickly remove the 30-second plate. I'll wait another 30 seconds until a total time of 60 seconds has passed. Then I will quickly reach in and remove the 60-second plate. I'll wait for another 1.5 minutes until a total time of 2.5 minutes has elapsed. I will then reach in and remove the 3rd plate. And I'll turn the light source off at that point. And then what I'm going to do, of course, is I'm going to reset the light fixture. I'm going to move it up to the medium position. Lift it up. Move this away. So you can see that I have now moved the light fixture up to the medium position. You can no longer see the plates because I have moved the camera so that you can see the light fixture. I'm going to point the camera back at the bench where the plates are going to be. And then I will go through one more round of plates to make sure that it's clear what I'm going to do. So remember, I'm going to do 3 plates at each distance. I already did 3 plates at the lowest distance. I now need to do a second set of 3 plates at the medium distance of 80 centimeters. I labeled these 3 plates 30M, 60M, 2.5M, with the 30M far left, 60M middle, and the 2.5M on the far right. Remember, the M designation indicates these plates were exposed at a distance of 80 centimeters. Okay? So again, I would turn on the light fixture, which you can't see at this point. I'd wait 30 seconds, remove the 30M plate, wait until a total time of 60 seconds has elapsed, remove the 60M plate, wait until a total time of 2.5 minutes has elapsed, and then immediately remove that 3rd or 2.5M plate, and then turn the UV light off. Now, the only thing that is left to do is to raise the light fixture up to the highest position, still labeled as high, 120 centimeters above the bench top. I'm not going to show you that. There really isn't any reason to do it again. You've already seen me do the maneuvers twice. I would do the same thing with the plates. The only difference would be that the light fixture would be at 120 centimeters at the highest position. And then what I would do is I put the 30H plate on the left, the 60H plate in the middle, and the 2.5H plate on the far right. And then turn on the light fixture, and then remove the plates at 30, 60, and 2.5 minutes. Okay, so what I'll do next on the video is give you a quick demonstration of how I transfer the bacterium that we are working with from a broth culture that has been growing overnight to the surfaces of all 9 plates.
The second half of this video will demonstrate how we will transfer the bacterium Serratia marcescens to 9 plates of tryptic soy agar. We will transfer the bacteria to the surfaces of the 9 plates using a swab technique that I will demonstrate over the next few minutes of this video.
Module 14 uses a bacterium called Serratia marcescens. I have it here, growing in a broth. Inoculated this yesterday afternoon, so it's been growing, about 24 hours. Probably see it's fairly cloudy, so I've had quite a bit of good growth in the broth. Now, earlier today, I labeled a series of plates. Each of these plates contains tryptic soy agar. It's a commonly used general medium for the growth of many different kinds of bacteria. Now, from where you're sitting, watching me on the camera, you're not going to really be able to read these plates, I get it, but I can at least tell you what I've written on the plates. So I have 3 rows of 3 plates.
Let's look at the plates in the first row.
I have labeled one plate 30L, second plate 60L, and a third plate 2.5L. I did the same thing in the middle row, except these plates in the middle are labeled with an M. So this is labeled 30M, this plate is labeled 60M, this plate is labeled 2.5M. And finally, the third row of plates labeled 30H, 60H, 2.5 inch. The number 30 represents 30 seconds. The number 60 represents 60 seconds. The number 2.5 represents 2.5 minutes. Those three different numbers refer to the length of time that those plates are going to be exposed to UV light. So all of the 30 plates, 30L, 30M, 30H, are all going to be exposed to UV light for 30 seconds. All of the 60 plates, 60L, 60M, 60H, are all going to be exposed for 60 seconds. And finally, all the 2.5 plates, 2.5L, 2.5M, 2.5H, are all going to be exposed for 2.5 minutes. So what's with the L, the M, and the H? Well, we are actually introducing two variables into this module. We're not only going to have a variable of time of exposure, we're also introducing the variable of distance between the plate and the UV light source. There will be three distances that we'll be working with. There'll be a low distance, which I think is 40 centimeters. There'll be a medium distance above the bench top, which I think is 80 centimeters. And then there'll be a highest distance that is furthest from the bench top. That'll be 120 centimeters. So the letter L represents the lowest position. The letter M represents the medium in-between position. The letter H represents the distance farthest from the bench top. So if you think about it, I have three different times of exposure at each of the three distances. So there's a 30L plate, a 60L plate, and a 2.5L plate, which means those three plates will all be exposed at the lowest distance, the shortest distance, 40 centimeters. One plate will be exposed for 30 seconds, the second plate at 60 seconds, the third plate for 2.5 minutes. Similarly, the middle row here, where the three plates are labeled with M's, these three plates will be exposed at the medium distance, 80 centimeters from the bench top. Plates will be on the bench top, of course, the light source above them. This plate will be exposed for 30 seconds, this one for 60 seconds, this one for 2.5 minutes. And finally, this group of three plates closest to me, this row closest to me, they'll be exposed to a light source that will be positioned at the highest level, 120 centimeters above the bench top. This plate for 30 seconds, this plate for 60 seconds, this plate for 2.5 minutes. So I have 9 different combinations of time of exposure and distance from the UV light source. But of course, none of this is going to work if we don't somehow first get the bacterium transferred to the surfaces of all 9 plates. So the question would be, how should I do that? So I'm going to show you how I would do that with only 1 plate. Then I will do the other 8 plates off camera. So let's see, I want to keep all the distances together. So I'm going to collect the 3 H plates aside, the 3 M plates aside, and the 3 L plates. So here's the stack of H, here's the stack of M, here's the stack of L. 3 plates in each stack. Here's my culture of Serratia marcescens. Here's my Bunsen burner, which I need to fire up. Now, the way that I'm going to transfer the bacterium from the broth onto the surfaces of these 9 different plates is through the use of 9 different sterile cotton swabs. I have a box of these swabs. Each swab is wrapped in a single sterile envelope. In order to use this, obviously, I have to open the envelope. So I peel it back. I grab the handle, which is just a wooden stick. I pull it out of the paper envelope, and you can see here, there is the cotton tip of that swab. This swab at this point is sterile. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate to you how I would transfer the bacterium from the broth to these plates. So let's just grab this plate here. This is the 30L plate. Doesn't make any difference, but just so you know, that's what I'm working with. I have the plate upside down. Here's my broth. I already off camera made sure this was mixed, but I'll look at here so you can see that I have mixed it. I get my swab ready between my thumb and forefinger. I grab the top of the tube, pop the top, flame the mouth of the tube. Now I'm going to go in, completely immerse the swab. And then as I bring it out, I'm going to kind of rub it against the inside of the tube, come back out, flame the top of the tube, put the top back on, tube back in the rack. Now the reason I ran the swab around the inside of the tube was to get rid of some of the drippy broth. I don't want this swab to be really sloppy. And so now it's ready to go. I'm going to grab the bottom of the plate, leave the lid behind on the desktop, turn the bottom of the plate up so that the surface of the agar is facing me. I'm now going to take my saturated swab and I'm going to just lightly and gently press on the surface of the agar as I rub the swab back and forth, all the way from one edge to the other, from, you might say, the 12 o'clock position to the 6 o'clock position. Now I'm going to turn the bottom 90 degrees, and I'm going to once again swab the top edge to the bottom at a right angle to the previous swabbing action. And then I will turn it another 90 degrees, and we'll do it a final time. I'm doing this to make sure that I am covering the entire surface of the agar plate so that the bacterium is evenly distributed across the agar's surface. I turn the bottom so the agar is facing the benchtop, and I replace it onto the lid. When done with the swab, I would then grab a waste container where contaminated swabs need to go, and I'm done with that swab. Just for your information, once this container is full with contaminated swabs, we then sterilize it before we throw them in the garbage. You never want to throw contaminated materials like swabs, contaminated paper towels, whatever. You don't want to throw those contaminated materials into the garbage without first killing the contaminating organisms. So these swabs in this container will eventually be sterilized, killed, and then we can safely throw the material away into the regular waste basket. Okay, so that's the way I would transfer the bacterium from broth to the surface of an agar plate. And I've done one of the 9 plates, and so I have 8 more plates to do. And each time I do a new plate, I grab a fresh wrapped sterile swab, open that swab, use it for the next plate. When I'm done with that swab, throw it in the waste container. Throw it in the waste container, set the plate aside, get the next plate, get a new swab, and just do that over and over and over again until I have finished all 9 plates. Then what I'll do is take those 9 plates that have all been inoculated, have all been swabbed with Serratia marcescens, and I will take them over to the ultraviolet light apparatus, and I will expose them for different amounts of time and at different distances.
This concludes Part 1 of Module 14. Please watch Part 2, where I will give you further information regarding the setup of the UV light apparatus and the proper exposure of the plates to different amounts of time of exposure at different distances of exposure. Thank you.